Hello, welcome back. I hope everybody enjoyed their break last week and did whatever you wanted to do over that time. I hope it was good for everyone. We're back and we have we're just about halfway. So the end of this week will be halfway through. Thursday will be layout, and then we have the final 4 weeks of our class. So we're just about halfway through. We're doing great. Today we're going to talk about space. This is the last element of design, and then we're going to do a section on layout, and then next week we'll start on the principles of design, and we'll close out, just do the last 8 are principles of design, and you'll get the whole rounded design elements and principles all to you. So today we're going to concentrate on space. Space, it is how all the objects are kind of arranged in relationship to each other. It's about how all the elements are arranged in a way that may show you some space. It's almost like form. Sometimes form and space could kind of be intertwined. I have a couple that show that, but I'm also just showing a grandeur of like how you can influence what people see. And then space, like I said, which I'll touch on more, is like just how items are placed within the design. A big one is when we talk about design is margins, and nothing should be touching something else unless it's intentional. So we always make sure there's a space around our items too. And that's also called white space in a lot of books as well. But I'll get into that. So let's get into it. Let's check out the space lecture. All right, space, last one. I'm going to zoom in, move my little guy here. I can never move it, whatever I want. All right, we'll leave it there, whatever. It's my giant mouse. There we go. All right, so let's talk about space, and then we'll look at our examples. Positive space. So it refers to the occupied area by the main subject. So that is like the item. So the person in a photograph, the person, it's a positive space. I can't say I'm really referencing positive space when I'm doing design, but we do talk about negative space a little bit more. And that's the space around objects that separates the object. And I think in design, we talk far more about negative space than we do positive space. As in that example, when we talk in like, if I drew a picture and then we had a person, like we said, the person is the positive space. Then all this stuff around them is what we'd call the negative space. There's a classic way to draw. Like if you ever took a more advanced drawing course, you may draw like a chair, but only draw the negative parts of the chair. So like if you were draw a chair and I've got the legs and the seat, and I'm drawing the items of the chair, or I could draw the items not of the chair, which are like the spaces in between everything. It's a little bit difficult with this heavy, but like you end up drawing what's not there, and you still end up with maybe a chair, but it just looks different than it normally would. So it's like the same. This is positive and this is negative. And I know that's a little, maybe you're like, what the heck did he just draw? But it's like, if there was a line, I drew around the lines. Like I drew all the space in between things. And then if you were like to color it in, like this, then the chair appears as a negative space. It's in there. So that's something fun. But yeah, generally we'll talk about negative space far more in a design composition than we'll talk about positive space. You use space to create depth of foreground, middle ground, and background. Sometimes will help affect the way a viewer sees things or how you arrange your items in order to make, give that sense of depth, and then maybe some importance. So foreground objects, I want you to see that right away. And then as I put things in the background, maybe they're not as important, but they have some importance. Or maybe, you know, you have some trickery or something going on. Let's reduce my line. So for that, you know, like it's as simple as like, if this is a box, and then I drew another one, and then another one. Just that sense of like somewhat overlapping gives us a sense of going back. So this is foreground, middle ground, and background. If I, you know, did this again, I would probably do it more like this is the better way to do it. And then they get smaller as they go backwards. So like super important here, not as important, least important, but you could still have like fun stuff going on. And that's just like a generalization to show you, you know, the foreground, middle ground, and background. Spatial relationship, proximity, the arrangement of the elements to each other affects the perception of space. So if we have, you know, a bunch of things on our design and they're all close together here, and then something is over here, we group in our minds, we say, oh, these are grouped together. So the arrangement of elements in the proximity to each other means that these go together and that these go together because they are grouped separately on this like billboard. And we just naturally do that. The other way, if you want to know the fun one, is called chunking. Think of your phone number. It is very hard for us. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 10. It's supposed to be 11 if you include the 1, but your phone number is broken up with a dash, not only because like that's how phone numbers, you know, they have an area code and then whatever and whatever, but the way you say your phone number is the way you break it up in chunking, so it's easier to remember actually. So when you say 414-769-1448, it's easier to remember those 3 chunks than it is to remember 414-769-1448, like where it's a big full number. So that's similar to that we want to make things group together, and it makes it easier to understand the whole idea of it. And then the overlap, when we just talked about the overlap right up there. That's another way to like show, if I was to draw these same boxes, but not overlap them, you could easily just like do something else and it would make it look like these were all on the same plane, that they were flat. Like if I just, you know, add another box to that size and 3 of this size, any idea there that these were like going back in space are lost. But here, because they are overlapping, they are definitely going back in space. Visual balance. Proper distribution of positive and negative space contributes to the visual balance of a composition. Yeah, so we'll get into, I think that's in your book. You're going to talk about Gestalt principles. That's how you say that weird word, Gestalt. It's a German word. It's the basis. It's kind of almost like it's the overlying basis of how an entire design works together as a whole. And it can also be kind of like the balance and composition. How is that visual balance working between positive and negative, foreground, background, working as a team? Is it showing, you know, is everything lining up? Are we hiding stuff? Is it seam off? Like everything's all to one side. Like if you did a poster and we just did, you know, like here's a poster and we just had a ton of stuff down here, you know, like in this corner and nothing else, you might be like, well, it's really unbalanced because why, like everything's down here and there's absolutely nothing up here. So what we do is, you know, that's why we'd be like, you know, in general, generic terms, like here would be a title at the top. and then we, bring the eye down, and maybe we'd have a subject matter here and some information here, but we don't jam it all in the bottom corner and then just kind of be like, yeah, that's good design. It feels comfortable. People are going to love to read that. It might be like, oh, it's a little bit odd. All right. Again, we can play with people's emotions. Open and close space. You want people to feel anxious? Close up that space. Everything's tight together, and they'll be like, oh, it's so tight. But if you have like really open and free, it's not so anxiety producing as per se that. So you can make people feel like that. This mostly happens, I'll say, with typography. If we jam up our typography and put our typography really close to things, and the type is like super tight in the leading is a space in between. It's right there. If you're in typography, leading refers to that space in between. And if that's too tight, it just feels wrong. Like we have a hard time reading it. But if we open up that space, we have spaces and gaps for people to think about. It makes it feel much better. It's just a general feeling. You develop your sense of this over designing, over time. I think a lot when we're starting out, we're just putting in what we need to put in and not really thinking like, okay, now how does that make us feel? Is there space? Do we, and a lot of times when we put stuff in, and it's just the way it works, is beginning designers have a tendency to put everything in as big as possible, no matter what. And then when you start to say like, oh, this could be much smaller, it doesn't need to be that big. It's a little bit, we're still trying to get the grasp on hierarchy and understanding the space idea, like how do I space things out? But when we're told to put 5 things in our design, our idea is to be like, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we're like, they're all in there as big as possible. And maybe we should be thinking like, okay, if we space stuff out, I'll put something big up here, and maybe like the 3 smaller ones down here, and then one in the middle. And then that way it's not so jammed up. It's the same information. We just kind of rearranged it to make it feel better. Then the other one is this isolation, and then it's just like signaling out. So if you do, whatever, I feel like you remember that rabbit in Texture, like it was just, here's the main focus. There's some text and some text, but it's like isolated, it's on its own. All I want you looking at is this one piece. Or if you remember the very first piece when we talked about line, I had that image where the guy was sitting here and it had the drawings behind him. And that was very much isolating him in the background to everything else. As we, this is all going into this application. Space is manipulated to create effective layouts. I've just been going over that, like just right now, like, is it too tight? Is it too loose? Do we isolate? Like all of these come to build your design. All right. Illusion of space. Linear perspective, that's just that converging lines. So like if you were to, that's a little bit like the overlapping, because we can converge those lines. So if I do something, like this, and then like, oh, it's the road going down the middle, and then we have things and they get smaller and smaller. We have this idea of perspective. That's linear perspective, converging lines. The aerial perspective deals with the atmospheric conditions. And so that means like stuff in the background compared to stuff in the foreground, we can change it by like making that lighter. We could tint that. So I don't know if I can do that with this. So if I had a box that was like dark orange, and atmospherically I wanted to make a box seem further away, I would probably just do this peach. Oh, it just changed everything. Whatever. Okay. Can't easily do it with this with this program. But that's what they mean by that. And then finally, which I always have to add, I say this every time I do this lecture, interactive spaces. It's a huge thing now. Like, hopefully you go to some places or places that you visit. Sorry, I'm getting that out of the way. That we're starting to design into spaces. It's fairly new, maybe 10 years new, where people are starting to think like, instead of like when you do your design for a room, instead of just like having things blank, you put graphic design up and you design into a space. Let me find a graphic. Let me find an example really quick. No, in physical. Let's find a good one. Oh, nothing's popping up. Think of like a museum, or it's also called like environmental graphic design. Here's a pretty good picture. Ugh, and then I just lost it. This kind of stuff. So like where the walls have stuff on it and then the floors have stuff on it, where we're designing into the space and creating a far more like engaging space to be in, rather than just white, we have blue walls and a white floor. Like, that's no fun. Like, I want to be in the space. I want to like look at it and see what it looks like. And then you're kind of involved in that. So that's the environmental space that's talking about in this last one, the interactive spaces. That's really fun to do, and you'll be hitting upon that in one of the classes that you take here. Let's check out our examples. All right. I like this one because it's creating space without space. All it is it's a reverse positive negative. So these are just shapes. They're not necessarily buildings, but because of the way they're arranged, our mind says in chunking or in grouping, those are buildings. But then also the buildings are reversed. So normally we probably think that the building should be black on a light background. The sky should be light, but they did a reversal here. And it still creates space. It still makes it feel like this is in foreground, this is in background. And then the foreground area becomes the banner section, which is pretty cool. And then below that, like we have a little tear, like somebody tore it off. And then we have our information down here, which is extremely flat looking. But it doesn't take much to give an illusion of space, to get people to think that the page is quote unquote bigger than it is. And then as you can see, when we talk about the other parts of space, as we can see, this has got its own space, lots of space around it. This has lots of space around it. It's not, touching this line, or it's not touching the date. This isn't as big as it could be, like I'm going to make that logo this big and then it's going over the buildings. Like, no, they gave it room. They gave this room. Everything here is spaced out nicely. And look how spaced out these are. You can read each one, and they're not all jammed up. They're not all like, I'm not feeling tense. This is a nice open little flyer for the art school. Tintin. Gorgeous space. We got like, and the weird thing about this is I kind of like is, so he's walking across the world. We have this immense space. This is that atmospheric space I was talking about right here, where the ship is slowly like getting lighter and lighter as it goes back. Same with the airplane, gets lighter and lighter. There's a highlight right here. We're creating a positive space and the negative space. He's actually a negative space, him and Tintin and his dog. I don't know the dog's name. And then I like that, like everything around the edge here is much smaller. Like we have like the camels walking and sand dunes and more sand dunes and waves. But then like this weird like forcing is, we have these giant, this is actually pretty big in comparison to like maybe where it is, but it adds to that dimension and everything is coming out from Tintin, like here, you know, zooming out, like everything's coming from him. So it is that linear perspective as well. So they're doubling up on this one. Not only is it just atmospheric, it's also linear, and it's creating this world. The adventure of Tintin, I think he travels all over the world, and that's what we're supposed to grasp when we read that. And we look at that poster, the grandioseness of it. This one is just cool and weird. The idea, like, these are, you know, this brutalist, right? Brutalism is like the hot new topic because there's some movie out about brutalist design and everybody's talking about it right now. It's awesome. I've been showing this forever. But we have this kind of like brutalist cement landscape with this super like high-end lighting, high key, right? High key. So it's like perfectly, like absolutely dark shadows and then a brighter bright. And then we have these cool letters supposedly made out of ice. And I'm gauging that because they put these little darker spots here, but it's all like a little bit 3D, and it's making up this space, the feeling that you could walk from here, maybe jump down here, look at that, kick over the sea, whatever. But it's all walkable space with this, the way they've built it all, or have taken the picture as well to really give us and capture, like, this is a space that I really feel like I could enter. And it's done because of the correcting of the shadows. Like, if there was no shadows and we lightened up everything, it would seem really flat and really unengaging. And so that's something that they needed to do when they took the photo. And if they added this in post, that they made sure, like, we have to add the shadows to make sure that we're not losing interest and just having, like, it seems like these are weird letters just floating there. Here's another one about graphic design doesn't need to be flat. And again, this is what was the other piece I showed? I feel like there's a piece that I showed or something coming up that is very similar to this. And it's like, we don't always have to work flat. We don't always have to just put flat text on a piece. And here it's like so much fun that they're like, they seem like they're falling onto us. And I so wish that they would have taken this, we make cool things melt. I wish that they would have done this. And it's like one change is MELT. But they have an M that's falling over. They have a T that's falling over. But why didn't they do an L and an E? You know what I mean? Because it's this I is falling over, this I is falling, this N is falling over, this T is, and this M is. But they could have subliminally put in the name of the company and had those letters actually being the ones that were falling over. So I think they're like one stage away from like this ultimate, like hiding something in there as well. But again, when we work on designs, we're so, you know, initially, and I do it every day. I'm never like thinking, I never initially think like, oh, this would be cool if it was like super 3D. I think a lot of it comes down to, I need to get it done. So I'm just going to do what I normally would do, which is this stuff over here. But it's far more boring than looking at something like this, but this takes you extra time. And then the final one for some positive and negative space is the black swan. Light is in back of the dark. Oh, it's a running theme here, right? Light is in you know, that backlit, but here we have images. But then these feathers, which are white, are in the foreground. It's not in front of the black swan here, but it gives you a sense that this is, the swan, which is pointing at black swan. See that interaction here? This is, look at that relationship right there, really perfect. And the swan is looking at it. It's looking at the type. It's bringing us down. But we have the human figure in the background. And then this is kind of a wing shape here, right? And then we have these feathers, which are in the foreground, which are coming over the neck. And then this black swan is furthest closest to us. So it's sort of like an extremely flat piece, but the way they worked with space is the reason why it works so well. And it kind of it has layers, even though it doesn't feel like it has a lot of depth. It has layers, but it doesn't feel like it has a lot of depth. So that is that. Any questions about space? All right, cool. Let's get into it. All right. Changing things up on you again. So I'm going to open this and then I'm going to do it. So we're now, as we started last week, we are now going to use proper design programs to do the research portion. We are no longer using PowerPoint or Google Slides. I want you to start to play around in the actual design programs. So on this one, the last one we used Illustrator. This one we're going to use InDesign. InDesign, there's the little logo. It comes, it comes as part of the graphic design package. I use it every day, almost every day. I've been using it earlier. Make it for presentation, make it for printing flyers. I use Illustrator the most, InDesign the second most, Photoshop the third. So InDesign and Illustrator are the two programs you really have to master. Photoshop to me comes with just like practice, and generally I'm not designing into it. I'm using it to adjust a quick photo. I need a photo like that. I need something like colorful, and I'll paint in Photoshop and be like, there it is. But 90% of the time I'm using Illustrator InDesign. And here we're going to use InDesign. And I'm going to take you through the step-by-step process. And it's very easy. So all we're going to go do, we want to create a new file. Then you're going to get this pop up here, okay? Now we need to create a print document. So I'm just going to click on print, and we can change some stuff. So I want to create a print document that is 16 inches wide by 9 inches tall. So if you look here, I'm going to need to change my units. And every once in a while, I don't know what it is, I have to change it twice. So the width is 16 and the height is 9. So 16 wide by 9 high and inches. If you don't do inches, it's going to be all messed up. You're going to do pixels and you're going to be like, why is my document super tiny and nothing working? It's because you didn't do inches. So make sure you do inches. This orientation is correct. We do not want facing pages. Click that off. Facing pages, it says we have one page, no facing pages. We want I'm going to scroll down. We're going to skip over columns. We want our margins set at 1/2 inch. And then we want our bleed set at 1/2 inch. Oops, I hit return. But just fine. Okay. So it's just totally fine. I hit return. Everything was fine. Now, you need to turn on the ruler if it's not already on. To turn on the ruler, you can hit Command or Control R, or you go to Window or View and Rulers. You can hide the rulers, View, Show the rulers. So I want you to show the rulers. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull one vertical guide and one horizontal guide. So I'm going to go up, right up in here, and I'm going to click and drag. And what it does is I get to pull a guide. And 1/2 of 9 is 4.5. So I want my guide there. And then I'm going to go to this left side, and I'm going to click and drag from the ruler out. And 16, 1/2 of 16 is 8. Now, what you could also do is if I grab that guide, I can just hit that center mark, and I can grab that guide and hit that center mark, and it will adjust it. So see, like, oh, if I just pull them in quickly, then you just go here, center it. Oh, on the artboard. So you go to page, align to page, and then you do that. So make sure that one's on align to page. And then your guides will be perfectly fine. And that's just to indicate to you, I know where the center is, and I can kind of work from there. Now you've been working with this program a little bit. Now we're going to create our layers. So I went from pages. I'm going to make sure I'm on layers up here. And I'm just going to make a layer called title. Okay. I'm going to make a layer called images. I'm going to make a layer called, oh, I can remove that paragraph. We don't need that. Background. So I'm going to remove that from the program. It was like a little bit of a copy and paste that you guys aren't doing paragraphs yet. So I'll remove that from the assignment. Don't worry. I made a note. And then I'm just going to make sure background is on the bottom, and I generally put images. So it's like I kind of put my layers, and I rearrange those layers in hierarchy. Title's most important, images is second, background is third. And then that also makes sure whatever I put in the background will be in the background and will cover up anything that I worked on. So we do this. Now you can work like this, like we do all the other assignments. You go and you find your images, and then you place them in. So I have a social media one I can place it. So I'm going to go, and you went online and you found your book cover, you found your album cover, and you found your movie poster. And then I'm going to go to File, Place. Oh, and you're going to make sure you're on the right one. I want to be in Images. File, Place. And then I'm going to go here, and I know they're on my computer. And I'm just going to take this guy and hit Open and place it. Now, this is a good size, but I can make it bigger and smaller. And then as you can see, it'll lock to that guide. I'm going to use Free Transform to make it bigger. And again, what do? We never not hold Shift. See how Shift pops up down there? If we want to make something bigger or smaller, we 100% of the time, we hold down the Shift button. I just commented to somebody today that their images were all squished. They did not hold down the Shift button. Even if you do it from this, oh, you can't do it from that. Let that be on Free Transform. So remember, in Illustrator, it's a little different. If you're just on the Select tool and you try to change the size of something, nothing will happen. It crops it. So you have to use that Free Transform tool right here. And then when you make it bigger, it'll make it bigger. But again, we want to always hold down what? Shift. If you Shift constrains it. It's very, very, very important. And now for this one, I'm just going to copy and paste 3 times or 2 times or 100 times. So I have, pretend these are my 3, but everything we've done in the past, we can do in this program. So I just clicked and I selected all 3 of these. I'm going to go to Free Transform. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to make them smaller. And then I can grab all of these. And the first thing I can do is it's aligned to page. I'll bring all those up. And then I can slide 1 all the way to that margin. I'm not going past the margin. And then if I select all 3, what's the magic when we go to? Just like in Illustrator, we distribute spacing. Boom. Oh, and what it did, which is perfectly fine, it did it to the artboard. So if I undo that, and I use go back up here and align to selection, it should be. And then I hit that. It perfectly centered it. If you do it the other way, it perfectly centers it. You just bring those in from the margin. So if you were still on the page one and I did distribute spacing, it's still equally spaced and centered that one. All I would do is grab that and slide it in holding shift. And then slide it in holding shift. You do your title. The title is the same. You just click and then you click and drag to make a title box. And then just like L cover. Now the fun part here is you can mess with it in 2 spots. So I'm going to go down because it's easier for me to go here. And I want the character and paragraph. So depending on your design, you may want it left, or maybe you want it in the center. And then you want your text bigger. And then you can play around and you can move it and you kind of do one and get it where you want it perfect. And then you can copy and paste that. And you can bring it up. And then again, it does that whole thing where everything it shows you, like everything's aligned. Everything's aligned. It's just as easy as using those Google Slides and whatnot. There's actually, the only part that maybe makes it confusing is that there's far more options. You far more creative abilities in these programs than you do like Google Slides. So again, this one, you're going to do it in this way. And then let me just double check. Get the assignment open. I want you to upload both the InDesign file. So like for the last one and this one, from now on, I want to see both the InDesign file or Illustrator file and the PDF, because you have to learn how to do these things. And then so for that, again, I have this, say it's done, let's pretend it's done. I've got my 3 images and, put a title on it, all that kind of stuff. It has a title up here. It's properly set up. And then you save it. You save it, file, save as. You can save it to your computer. You can save it to the cloud, wherever you want. Save on my computer. And this would be Elements. Oh, hold on. Space, so I'd be, okay. JSKAJA _ space. And then I'll save it to my desktop as an InDesign file, save. And then what's different, and I don't know why they do this, I didn't write the programs. To do the PDF, I'm going to go to export. And then the same thing, PDF. And now hold on. I'm going to hit save, but a whole new range comes up. Now, what I need you to make sure of is that you can be on press quality if you want. View PDF after exporting should be clicked on. And then when you go to marks and bleeds, none of these should be activated, okay? Sometimes it automatically activates some things, so you just double check. Marks and bleeds, general, good. And then I'm going to hit export. And it opened up the PDF for me to view. All looks good. And then I close that and I turn that in. So viewing the PDF afterwards is your way of making sure that it's all correct. It gets you to see it in a different light and you're all good. Any questions about that? All right, moving on. Let's find it. Oh, I closed it, didn't I? All right, let's do another one. All right, we're back here. Back to space. And now, space project. Easy peasy. No, it's a thinker. It's a thinker. I've already downloaded it. So you open it, you scroll down, you get that, you click download. I've already downloaded it, so I'm just going to open that. Element 7. Let's work with space. This is what we need to do. We have opposites. So I want you to create compositions that kind of match, but show the definition. Create a crowded composition, then create one that feels nice and open. I want you to create a composition that makes us think that something's very near to us, and then a composition that makes us think that something's very far from us. And then I want you to work with positive space and negative space. And you can use, like here where I just did dots, and I did dots. If you want to, it's kind of fun to match them. So if you do something here, the matching is down here. If you do something near here, maybe you do that same thing here in a positive and negative. So it might make the assignment a little bit easier if you think like, okay, I'm going to use these elements and I'll use it in the top one and in the bottom one. And then you do the next one. I'm going to use these elements. I'm going to do it in the top one. I'm going to do it in the bottom one. Have some fun. Again, look, green is good. Red you can turn off. Work in your layers, work in those proper layers. Get used to that. Get used to that. You're going to be using layers for the rest of your career. Get used to working the layers, understanding the layers, where you're putting your items, all that kind of stuff. It is very important to just kind of get used to it. It may seem strange. It takes a little bit, but after a while it clicks and you're like, oh, good. Yep, I know exactly what I'm doing. Need to put this here, need to put that there. I'll talk about using layers. Is I was working on a 56-page document in InDesign, and in a little bit of hurry, I put something on a wrong layer. I put text on an image layer, and even though I was almost done, I went to that one page, I took the information, the text, I cut it out, and then I placed it on the right layer. Even though nobody else would necessarily see this document, I wanted to make sure that I was working in the correct layers, that if something came up in the future, I could quickly go and get what I needed without having to be like, wait, why is this one different? So I do use the layers, and I use them like crazy. So like I said, I didn't even need to go back and fix that thing, but I did because it's sort of just for me. Nobody's really going to see it, but I knew if I come across it in the future, I want to know that it's right. So is there any questions about your space project? All right. And then our practice. I think we're Illustrator on practice. Let's see which one we are. Paul Rand. If you guys have trouble, if it's not downloading, let me know. Okay, go to my folder. I double click. And then again, I'm going to look. This is InDesign. All right. Again, the program that you need to use for this one is InDesign. So it's double InDesign today. Here are all your pieces. And let's open it. And we find out that nothing's put in there. We're missing all of our examples in our photo. I've only included the text, the title, and that color bar at the bottom. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to, let's go to photo, and I'll zoom in. I don't want to try that now. And then I'm going to go to file, place. And I'm going to go to downloads. I'm going to go to Paul Rand, and I'm going to go to Rand photo, PR photo. And I could just like go right to that corner right away. And when you click kind of bad sometimes. And then again, I want to reduce the size of this. Free transform tool, hold down shift, move it back up. There's a billion ways to do this. You do what's easiest for you. You can go up here, you can type in 50% and it'll just make it 50% smaller. That's generally what I do to get it like small enough to see. And then I'm just going to line it up. And then I can put in title. Push it over. You know how I'm doing that? See it walking over like that? My arrow keys. I use my arrow keys all the time in design to nudge. Call it nudging. Use your arrow keys. Start to discover all those great things that you can do to help your design. And then I'm going to go to File, Place. And I want my 3 examples. Open. Again, I see a number 3 there. It's moving around. I click once, twice, and a third time. And then there's something special here. I'm going to go to 50. So we have this piece looks good. I have this piece, which will fit in there, right? But this one has junk around it. We need to crop this one. InDesign is easier to crop than in Illustrator, because for this, I actually go to the select tool here, and all I need to do is pull to the edge of the piece, and it automatically crops it. In Illustrator, and I think I'll show you that in like a week, in Illustrator, you use what is called a clipping mask. But in InDesign, it does it for you with the select tool. You can't use the free transform tool to do that. You need to use that tool. Free transform then is to scale it, and we always hold down shift until we get that weird error. What is that? So then all I want to do is then go back to the free transform tool. I'm going to hold down shift and make that first poster the size it needs to be. I'm going to grab the second one, get it aligned. It's aligned with the edge of that poster and that margin. It's very hard to see, but I'm going to grab the corner, hold down shift, and then stop at the right height. See that little arrow pop up? I'm at the correct height. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one. I was on the wrong tool. So what happened there, in which I do it all the time, I was still on this. I was on select. And so even though I did everything right, it cropped it. I wasn't on free transform. Sometimes I'm working so quick, I do that all the time, and all it does, undo and go back. So I want free transform to lock there, and then this final one. So even after, like 30 some years of designing and using these programs, I still hit the wrong thing. But you're so quick at it to like make that change to just be like, oh, oops. And then you hit the right thing. I think the other problem I have is I use too many different, I use a Mac and a PC, and a lot of things change. All right. And then, so my examples are in. Let's move the body copy in the background. The background goes. And remember, the background goes all the way to the bleed. We'll talk about that on Thursday, what bleed is and why we use it and why it's so important. And then I'm going to put in my text. And we get it perfectly the way we want it. We go to File, we go to Save. Looks good, Save, Replace. And then we go to File, Export. Export as a Adobe PDF print. That's what we want to do. We hit save. We make sure that view PDF after exporting is turned on. We make sure that nothing is checked here. And then we hit export. And there it is. Oh, I didn't turn off my background layer. I forgot to do that. So good thing, right? Then I looked at it. What do? Then you go back. You turn off the eyeball on that layer and just go save, file, export, and you just re-export it. It's like takes like 1 minute. Replace, export. There we go. So that's why you check those PDFs, and then you just reopen it and you resave it, and you're lickety split. You're done. So don't ever overlook that. Double checking your work in the PDF format. So, and then you're reading Gestalt Principles. Any questions, comments, or concerns about space? All right, excellent. Have fun, enjoy. Next class, Thursday's class, we'll talk about layout. As you can see, you can open it. It's going to be some different sort of projects. These two projects are different, but you're already learning how to do these. You've done them. You've done one in Illustrator. You've done one in InDesign. So these will be easy. But what you're going to be doing is on Thursday, these two projects are going to be used to do two final projects. So these are going to carry through for the end of the semester after you build them. And then your design practice and your textbook. So there you go. That's a little preview of what's going to happen on Thursday. It's good to be back. We'll close out this semester. We're almost halfway done. We'll be halfway done at the end of the week. And then, yeah, that's it. So awesome. Thank you. Hope you guys have a good week and welcome back again. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.